today the message to take home as far as Mahmoodabad is concerned is that he has got liberty for the moment, but that liberty is contingent on continued good behavior. The heckler's veto, as it is called, has been legitimized by the courts, or at least that's what the Supreme Court said. That why don't you write it in simple language? In simple language, all that Mr. Mahmoodabad seems to have said is that it is very good that you had Sophia Qureshi giving out, representing India, but it would be even better if there was no lynching of Muslims like Sophia Qureshi, or Muslims who also belong to the same religion like Sophia Qureshi. Now just note what happened there. I started self-censoring immediately because that particular sentence could be misinterpreted, and very often the question is, for such things, do we send people to jail, or do we put them in jail and ask questions later, or say we'll put them in jail and let the courts deal with them later? That is, if I were to say, it sounds to me like Thanedar logic. They are made to run around for bail. That is what really needs to be seen, that the process becoming the punishment should not lead to a gag on free speech.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Supreme Court today has granted interim bail to Ashoka University professor Ali Khan Mahmoodabad in the Haryana police FIR over his social media posts about Operation Sindoor. Now, he was arrested on May 18th and has been under custody ever since. Now, what has court done today? Court has refused to stay the investigation. The court has also directed the Haryana DGP to constitute within 24 hours a special investigation team comprising senior IPS officers who do not belong to Haryana or Delhi to investigate and understand the true meaning of the social media post written by Professor Mahmoodabad. Now, one officer of the SIT should be a woman. The SIT should be headed by an IG rank officer, and the other two members must be of the SP rank. Now, as a condition of the interim bail, the court has also restrained Ali Khan Mahmoodabad from writing any posts or articles in relation to the social media posts which are subject matter of the case, or from expressing any opinion in relation to the terrorist attack on the Indian soil or the counter response given by India. The court has also directed him to join and fully cooperate with the investigation, and he has been directed to surrender his passport. So, as far as Mahmoodabad is concerned, he's got an immediate relief, and that's the interim bail. But if you take a look at the hearing which ensued in the court graphically, Justice Surikant's comments during the argument do not seem to be very encouraging. And why I'm saying this is, I'm just going to give you a lowdown of few statements which he made, or few things which he said during the course of the argument. And this is what makes us think that Mahmoodabad's interim bail, is it a half-baked victory? Now, say, for example, Justice Surikant says that everybody has a right to express the free speech, but is it the time to talk of this much communal? The country had faced a big challenge. Monsters came all the way and attacked our innocence. We were staying united, but at this juncture, why to gain cheap popularity on this occasion? Now, this statement, cheap popularity, it clicks everyone, and that's what people are asking the questions. He's been pulled on the social media currently. The second thing, he says everybody talks about rights as if the country for last 75 years was distributing rights. This is a statement coming from Justice Kant. Similarly, he also says that this is what we call in the law dog whistle, which means that his social media post is being considered by Justice Kant as a dog whistle. And then he says some of the opinions are not offending to the nation as such, but while giving an opinion, if you, and then dot dot dot, and the statement is over when he says later, when the choice of words is deliberately made to insult, humiliate, or cause discomfort to other persons, the learned professor cannot have the lack of dictionary words. Now, this is something which seems to be a little unthinkable why a judge would say like this. He would convey, then again, I'm quoting him. He says he would convey the very same feelings in a simple language without hurting others. Have some respect for the sentiments of others. Use simple and neutral kind of language, respecting others. This is what Justice Kant has said. So we'll try and dissect the Supreme Court's order today. Joining me now this evening is a very special guest, constitutional expert and veteran Supreme Court lawyer. Sanjay Hegde joins us on Truth Be Told. So thank you so much for joining on a day like this. When we really need to understand this order, my first question to you is, this order by the Supreme Court, of course, is an immediate relief for Mahmoodabad. But why does it look like a half-baked victory to a large section of the people today?
Well, a large section of people may have had hopes that there would be a immediate vindication of Mahmoodabad's stand and an immediate condemnation of this kind of witch hunt which has been happening as far as he is concerned. The court has not done all that. In fact, the court has almost mirrored what it has done in the MP minister's case, Mr. Shah, who said certain tasteless things about the army. And the MP High Court had taken suo motu cognizance of that. Thereafter, the Supreme Court, while dealing with Mr. Shah's appeal, had also constituted a special investigating team, but protected him from arrest. In Mahmoodabad's case, because he had already been arrested, the Supreme Court has today released him, but also constituted a similar kind of special investigation team.
No, but sir, the biggest question is that why Supreme Court refused the stay on the investigation? Supreme Court also could have quashed and dismissed the case summarily. That is what everyone was expecting. And which is why I'm asking you this question, that does it look like a half-baked victory?
Well, it's always like that. No, sometimes people think that the glass is half full, sometimes it's half empty. And people think that that it's only their side which needs to be stamped by the courts. But that's not how things work out in courts. In fact, on an unconnected note, Professor Mark Galanter of the University of Madison once said that the Indian court's idea of justice is that when two people are fighting for a 100-rupee note, to tear it into half and give each person half. So sometimes judgments come which both sides are disappointed with. So today the message to take home as far as Mahmoodabad is concerned is that he has got liberty for the moment, but that liberty is contingent on continued good behavior.
Mr. Hegde, what happens to the freedom of expression? What happens to those rights, the fundamental rights which we talk about? Somehow, people look disappointed with the Supreme Court today, especially with what Justice Surikant mentioned as his observations during the argument. They don't seem to be very encouraging.
Well, judges say a lot of things during arguments. Sometimes they deliberately say things to provoke people. Whatever is said in court these days with live reporting and live tweeting is sometimes taken as an indication. But ultimately, courts and the legal process go by the written order. Having said that, I quite see why people might feel disappointed. And there are many who believe that, you do not need freedom of speech for popular speech. I do not need protection. For instance, if I say, Nilu, you are a very good person, you are the greatest journalist on earth. But if I were to say that, Nilu, your journalism lacks X, Y, Z, it might be unpopular with you. And your remedy may be to take a defamation or something of that kind. But
Right.
when you weaponize the system to lock up people for what they say, what they think, what they post on social media, then comes this question as to whether whether the system actually allows freedom of speech, or whether the system encourages you to pre-censor, and whether this kind of pre-censored speech is free speech at all. Has there been a chilling effect on free speech? These are questions which people could legitimately ask.
No, but Mr. Hegde, if you look at today's order, now, is that the biggest takeaway of today's order? Is it going to be self-censorship? Because one must carefully think before writing, one must carefully think before reading or saying anything. So it will lead to some kind of a self-censorship. And I, as a journalist, or maybe the activist, or whoever is speaking vocally about certain issues, will have to think twice, because the courts will also not be by your side. Because if you say or write anything as a social media post, is that the biggest takeaway
Yes,
of today's order?
that may be a takeaway for some people. So the thing is, the heckler's veto, as it is called, has been legitimized by the courts. Ali Mahmoodabad put out a Facebook post, to which Ms. Bhatia of the Haryana Commission for Women took great objection. Mr. Mahmoodabad's post could possibly have been worded better, or at least that's what the Supreme Court said, that why don't you write it in simple language? In simple language, all that Mr. Mahmoodabad seems to have said is that it is very good that you had Sophia Qureshi giving out, representing India, but it would be even better if there was no lynching of Muslims like Sophia Qureshi, or Muslims who also belong to the same religion like Sophia Qureshi. Now just note what happened there. I started self-censoring immediately, because that particular sentence could be misinterpreted, and very often a line or two is taken out of context. And again, in the days of social media, any kind little clip which is then posted with additional commentary and emphasis and spin, anything can be interpreted any which manner. The question is, for such things, do we send people to jail, or do we put them in jail and ask questions later, or say we'll put them in jail and let the courts deal with them later? That is, if I were to say, it sounds to me like Thanedar logic.
Yeah.
The SHO basically wants no trouble within his jurisdiction. So if there are 10 people beating one person who is supposed to have done something vulgar or inappropriate, the Thanedar finds it easier to put that one person in jail than deal with the 10 persons who are beating him. He says that I have taken action, and thereafter now let things be answered out in court. That is not necessarily the basis for a sound democracy that values fundamental rights, including the freedom of speech and expression.
No, but sir, at the end of the day, people are asking that, was bail bail surely was not sufficient today, and the case should have been summarily dismissed. Police and Mahila Ayog should have been fined, and instructions should have been given to ensure such incident is not repeated. But nothing like this happened. And now people tend to lose faith in the courts. And are the courts really by your side? And I mean, forget everyone else. I, as a journalist, now I'm thinking there are many things when you are having a panel discussion, or when you are doing a monologue, you tend to say a lot of things which sometimes bordering to the liberty of creative expression. You try and add expressions, you use certain epithets which may or may not be to the liking of the powers that be. So is there now a possibility that whatever I say, I'm going to be scrutinized with a lens, and if anybody finds an opportunity is going to nab me like this, and ultimately an SIT is going to be formed?
I'd like to respond with a share from Firak. Firak, was the great Urdu poet who was also MA in English literature. And he said, अब अक्सर चुप चुप से रहे हैं, बस यूं ही कबूल अब खोले हैं, पहले फिराक को देखा होता अब बहुत कम बोले हैं. So it is that which will happen. You and me will then speak very little. There will be the silence of a manufactured assent. We will be acquiescing in whatever the majoritarian discourse of the day is, and within us, that still small voice that makes you feel still smaller, your conscience, will tell you that maybe we should have spoken out a little more.
What does it mean? I mean, are we heading towards a society, or are the courts trying to make you realize that you have to now live in a suffocated society where you cannot speak or write at your whims? You just cannot do that. You need to learn that balancing act. Are the courts trying to tell you that through Professor Mahmoodabad's interim bail plea today?
Well, I do think that a lot of judges, and it's not peculiar to this time. There have been previous judges also who have sort of said, yes, we know that there is freedom of speech in this country, but why should it cause so many problems, and why should everything come to us in court, and why should we have to deal with it? So many years ago, Professor Ashish Nandi, the sociologist, said something during the Jaipur Literary Festival, and the then Congress government in Jaipur launched an FIR, and his lawyers moved the Supreme Court, which granted him relief at that point of time. But at the same point of time, it was Chief Justice Altamash Kabir who told the lawyers, Mr. So-and-so, please tell your client to be more careful in future. So that is the real thing. If the attitude of courts is that, freedom of speech, yes, it's a very nice thing to have in our constitution. It's a very nice thing to write learned judgments about. But when it is actually exercised, it is a bit of a problem for us to come to defend it. We sentinels on the qui-vive, as we call ourselves, will try to understand everything. We'll see the other person's point of view as well, and that even free speech has its limits. Now, yes, free speech in the Constitution is subject to reasonable restrictions, but those reasonable restrictions cannot eat up the content of the basic right itself. All that the Constitution says is that you have free speech, but there will also be laws relating to defamation. There will be laws relating to contempt of court, and in relation to friendly relations with other countries and all that. So, yes, if you want to take away somebody's liberty, if you think that somebody's speech has verged on something that could come within the definition of defamation or contempt of court or any of the provisions of the Nyaya Samhita, by all means, take the person to court, have a trial. If guilty, sentence him, fine. But here, what happens is that people are immediately picked up in the guise of investigation, and then they are made to run around for bail. That is what really needs to be seen. That the process becoming the punishment should not lead to a gag on free speech.
No, but eventually, what does this order do? Is it not gagging the society? Is it not sending out that gag message to a large section of the society, whether it is academicians, activists? Because Mahmoodabad's arrest had a chilling effect on everyone. All of us were left wondering as to, this kind of a thing can happen to anybody now. And now that this kind of an order has come, what do you think is going to be the impact now on the various sections of the society, and especially the ones who were freely speaking, expressing themselves? What happens to them?
No, forget those who were speaking, who may have been silenced. Please look at what it has emboldened. Now everybody will want to be a Renu Bhatia. Every tin pot dictator who has a small fiefdom somewhere will be looking for things that are not to the taste of those who have appointed them to those little fiefdoms. If somebody with a little fiefdom wants to get promoted to a bigger fiefdom, they will be on the lookout for somebody who is speaking out of line. So that, I think, is a more chilling message than anything else.
So you need to worry about your next door uncle, or you need to worry about your next door constable, who may be peeping and prying, and who may be on the watch out as to what you're speaking, what you're writing, and then they can just quickly find an opportunity to nab you. It clearly means that.
Well, I hope it doesn't mean that. And one has to trust the Supreme Court and its judges, because ultimately that is what the system is designed for. There have been judges, and sometimes interim orders may not go the full way. The ultimate judgment may be something else. We as citizens are, I think, duty bound to put forth our thought without fear or favor, because if free men and women cannot think or express themselves freely, we will not have a free society. It is very easy to say that we have a constitution, but the constitution is not a book. It is a living document. It is what the citizenry and the institutions make of it. If citizens say that, look, this kind of arbitrary arrest is not on, and that there will be a political cost to be paid, you can bet your life that immediately people will, all these tin pot dictators will not do things like that. As far as Mr. Mahmoodabad is concerned, he comes from a very, very illustrious family near the Lucknow area, and his community actually is well inclined towards the ruling dispensation. Now, if for instance this becomes an issue, then obviously there will be backpedaling.
But a lot of people are criticizing the comments of Justice Surikant, and they are saying that it's the same bench which gave relief to that Madhya Pradesh minister Vijay Shah, and he was it was an open and shut case, but then he was released without any restrictions. And why then put restrictions on Mahmoodabad just because he's a Muslim. And, that is the kind of discriminatory note which is coming out on the social media. A lot of people are writing against Justice Surikant, also alluding to the fact that very soon Justice Sanjeev Khanna will retire because his tenure is just for 6 months. After that, he'll take over just for 14 months. So we can imagine tough days ahead for all the people. So that is the kind of loud thinking which is happening on the social media. People have started preempting a lot of things.
Justice Khanna has already retired. Justice Gawai is now Chief Justice of India.
Justice Gawai, yes. Yes.
Till the 24th of November or something.
Yeah.
And Justice Suryakant will thereafter be Chief Justice. But yes, lawyers, judges, men and women of law, all of us learn from our experiences. And I will not be in a hurry to write off Judge X or Judge Y. And like lawyers, judges also have their on days, off days. I do think that in this particular case, maybe everything was not granted immediately, or what appeared to be open and shut to the outside world may not have appeared to be open and shut to the bench. But the case is not over. Even in other cases, like after initial tough conditions, then thereafter there has been relaxations. So for the moment, I think we should be glad that Mr. Mahmoodabad is back home, or will be released shortly to be back home with his wife and his about to be born child. I hope that the child grows up into an India where we do not have to think about who can get offended and who could possibly launch a criminal proceeding before we speak or write something.
So one final question, that do you also feel that with today's Supreme Court order on Mahmoodabad, there seems to be some kind of a balancing act which the court has tried to indulge into, and which is creating the illusion of justice, not justice per se, but the illusion of justice?
Many years ago, I think 2000 years ago, the classic question was asked, where in a courtroom situation between Jesus Christ and Pontius Pilate, and the question was asked, and what is truth? So Pontius Pilate asked that question and walked off. What is truth? Said jesting Pilate, but would not pause for an answer. So justice itself is an ephemeral concept. I would prefer to think of it as the legal process. The legal process shines on certain days. Sometimes it may leave things to be desired, but that is the process that a civilized society has, and it is a process of continuous education and re-education.
Okay, so there's some immediate relief for Professor Mahmoodabad, but how are the days going to be for him in the coming days? And of course, the impact of today's order on the larger section of the society, we'll have to wait and watch. Thank you so much, Mr. Hegde, for joining on HW. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.